But USAID has come under a lot of scrutiny and Democrats are freaking out at this point. I just want to get a general sense from someone who's been in DC a long time, understands the mechanisms. How legitimate are the claims of the Democrats going on here? And then also for spending purposes, it feels like we all kind of have known that there's been so much waste. Is it actually true?
It's so true that, and it's kind of like the president's solution with Gaza Strip, that because for years in the 90s, there used to be pieces of legislation introduced every year. Get rid of Department of Education, get rid of Department of Energy, get rid of USAID. But then in the 2000s, those were kind of poo-pooed, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Those things are so essential. Yeah, they're essential for the left. They're essential for undermining American interests abroad. All of those agencies, USAID right at the top. It's always been a problem for conservatives because even when we get good people in there, Jeannie Mancini, the former president of the March for Life, used to be in USAID. Even Richard Grenell, who I'm not a fan of all of his policies, under Bush, he was our friend at USAID. Yet these people would consistently be overrun. It's getting rid of the whole thing the way Elon Musk put it is we were looking for the worm in the apple and what we found was a bowl of worms. And with a bowl of worms, you go fishing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like they worked pretty quick. We found straight from the White House, 1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workspaces and business communities, 70,000 for production of DEI musical in Ireland, 2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, 47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia, 32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, 2 million for sex changes and LGBTQ activism in Guatemala, 6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation, millions to the Eco Health Alliance, which was involved in research at the Wuhan lab.
Right. It just goes on and on.
It's horrific. And I mean, for the people making the argument, oh, this is only 1% of government spend. What are we talking about here? Like, it's not a magnitude argument. It's not a quantity argument. It's like, what are we projecting? What have we been projecting to the world as to what America stands for the last however many years? And it's horrific. I couldn't even imagine. I know that Nayib Bukele with El Salvador is like, yeah, countries understand the strings that come with accepting USAID. It means that you are going to accept these bizarre priorities that are anti any type of Western Hemisphere Christian culture if you accept that aid. And they'll actually hold like necessary aid hostage over your head and say, hey, you want this food? You want these things? You're going to take this as well. You know, you're going to be pushing atheism in Nepal. Like almost like bizarre, hard to even make up type things we've been doing for the past 10 years at least.
A lot of it against the law. There is a law, the Zoolander Amendment. I always call it the Zoolander Amendment. But that says that the U.S. government cannot be influencing these other countries, mostly on the issue of abortion. And it just gets violated right and left by both administrations, usually worse under Democratic administrations. So I hope after this as well, somebody goes back with a broom and starts in a dustpan finding all these ones that were promoting abortion and start prosecuting for them. Finally prosecuting for people breaking the law.
Yeah, I was reading around different like Christian and Catholic pastors, priests, people who have actually been in these countries and talked to people from these countries, coming out with just testimonies of the absolute horror that USAID has been for them. So this one, Josh Howerton, who's the head of Leak Point Church in Dallas, which is a huge mega church. It has missionaries all over. But he wrote, I do not think American Christians realize how perverse our international influence has become. The pastor of the largest church in Chile spoke at Lake Point in Spanish last year. He explained that despite having a deeply traditional view of gender and family, Chileans have been aggressively teaching LGBT ideology in their public schools to the horror of the parents. Why? Because Chile feared losing USAID if they didn't. We're talking millions and millions of dollars in there. There was a Ugandan influencer who went on TikTok this week too, and she was just railing against her government, saying, "Look, Trump is giving us an opportunity here by cutting off this USAID. This is an opportunity for us to do what we say we have always wanted to do, which is be independent, run our own government, create wealth in our own country for our own people." And we've been accepting these millions and millions of dollars from the United States, along with their contraceptive LGBTQ ideology, because we want the money. And maybe this is a gift to us. Like, we can actually run our own country and create our own wealth. And so she just went on. She was great.
So I will say, and curious your perspective on this, Tom, like, it feels like if our elected representatives were serious, they would also be appalled at this ridiculous spending, in many cases illegal spending. What I've seen as the response from Democrats are, going to the U.S. Treasury building and chanting things like this. I mean, this clip is never going to get old to me, but here's Chuck Schumer outside the door.
We will win. We will win. We won't rest. We won't rest.
He's trying to hit him with that cane. He's got to get closer.
Can we play it again?
Can we play it again from Scott Jennings? But I feel like a lot of them, in Ilhan Omar is another one, they've been treating it like this is some existential attack on democracy, and say, like, to think of a word, like a shadow government is taking over the gears of government. Unelected bureaucrats are now threatening all that we hold sacred and dear. Yeah. There's got to be something deeper here, Tom, right? I mean, these Democrats, why can't they just say, yeah, this is bad spending, let's cut that out and then keep the essential stuff?
The Democrats aren't in control right now. They do not worry me as much. In the Senate, you do need 60. What worries me right now is the Republicans, who might not be chanting in front of buildings, but they're like, take Jim Risch, head of foreign affairs, who's complaining about this. On that Sunday, after the USAID news came out, Politico reported how John Thune's staff joined with Chuck Schumer's staff, calling up the White House to complain. And when I asked John Thune's staff about it, it's like, oh no, we were just asking questions. And I talked to administration folks, and they're like, no, they were complaining that this was being cut, and how important USAID is. It's the Republicans who, in less than 6 weeks, have to pass a budget. Now, if that button, Joe Biden, I don't know if you remember him. He was president a long, long time ago when you were still in diapers, Tom. Well, I'm sorry, when he was still in diapers. Except Joe Biden used to say, show me your budget, I'll show you what you care about. And I will bet you in this budget, be it a CR or whatever it is, the Republicans include funding for USAID. They include funding for all this garbage that's going on at the Department of Education. They'll include funding, which we in the pro-life community turn a blind eye to. They'll include funding for abortion, like Planned Parenthood and things like that. We're in a new Washington. And if these people don't realize that, they need to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that comment's probably going to come and bite me in the butt.
Well, okay, so
we'll flip that for sure.
But for the public, like people that elect these people, would your advice be to watch very carefully how people respond to the exposure via DOGE of spending priorities of USAID? Or
I think for most of the grassroots foreign aid spending is not all that popular across the board. So they're not going to complain that much about USAID, and especially once all the corruption comes out. What'll be interesting to watch is what he does with the Department of Education, because there are too many, even of our own people. I mean, George W. Bush almost tripled the size of the Department of Education during his term after saying that they were going to reduce it. So it'll be interesting once we start cutting there, how people will react. Except what they need to do is get on the horn and start, and maybe I'll talk to Tommy at Catholic Vote. Maybe we start doing alerts of getting our constituents and grassroots on the horn to say, back up President Trump. This is President Trump's agenda. We support it. Back it up.